Hello, everybody. This is Rick, and this is my astral trip to ancient Egypt. Before we get started, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, like people like Treehouse, who is an astral master, you get no commercial videos in advance, usually on Sundays. And we get to talk back and forth on Patreon and discuss astral projection. And if that sounds like something you'd like to support, there will be a link in the description. And lastly, anyone interested in private lessons to start astral projecting or to increase their control and amount of astral projections, I'm willing and able to provide private lessons. So you'll find an email in the description where you can contact me, and I'll send you information on that opportunity. Okay, I would say there's probably two questions that are asked me most often whenever astral projection comes up. And I don't know why, but it seems everybody asks them. And when they say, I got to ask you a question, I almost always know what it is. It's either A, have you been inside a black hole? B, oh, have you been to ancient Egypt and seen the pyramids built or whatever? And each time I've had to say no. Now, I have been in prison between two supermassive black holes, which, by the way, were discovered by scientists not that long after I posted my video, interestingly enough. And but as far as ancient Egypt is concerned, I have never traveled back there to really spend any kind of time looking at the pyramids. So I always had to say no. So this was kind of, consider this being in the back of my mind. And this is how everything started, because it didn't start with my idea of going to the pyramids. I was asked to complete a particular mission, whose details I can't get into right now, because I don't believe that the enemy knows precisely what we did. But I was sent along with two assistants. I was the only one who knew the mission profile, actually. They were just along to accompany me. I did what I was supposed to do, and as we were leaving, we were followed by some other entities that are allied with the master. And we wanted to stay ahead of them. Now, my assistants didn't know anything, as I said, but I did. I was telepathically closed down, but I could feel that at least one of the entities behind us was trying to probe and find out what I did. So we were fleeing and flying as quickly as we could to try to get away. I instructed my two assistants to take off in different directions, hoping that they would draw away the different entities and I could get away with the actual information. It kind of partially worked. Some of the entities following us did go after them, and nothing happened to them because they had no information to give when they were scanned. But I felt this very powerful entity following behind me. So I decided to use a technique that I learned from Robert Monroe's book, Far Journeys. Now, many of you have read his book, Journeys Out of the Body. That was his first book, and it was based on some of his first astral projections. So as such, they were fairly early projections for him. By the time he got to Ultimate Journeys and Far Journeys, his experiences had progressed quite a bit. In Far Journeys, he was interacting with other entities, some of which he called inspec, which were these extraterrestrial type intelligent entities, as well as other extrasolar beings and intelligences. And one of the games that were played by these particular entities is kind of a very interesting follow the leader type of situation. Uh, the person who is the leader shifts from time, space, dimensions, while those following try to keep track of him. And the way you do that, and this is hard to explain in English, but I'll do my best. You have the person or the leader's ident in mind. So when he vanishes to another time, space, dimension, what have you, you then have to zone in on his ident and follow him. It can be quite difficult unless you're extremely experienced in idents and time space travel. Uh, I've used it, for instance, to get away from lower astral type entities. And it's very simple because all you have to do is one shift and you've lost them because they don't have the energy or the capacity to follow your ident. It's just so it's usually quite easy. So when I sense this entity behind me, I immediately decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I shifted to an ident, and when I appeared to this at the new time space, I was in that 2900 reality I told you about, where there was this plantation where they were growing cassava root in between the current barrier or border of Kentucky and Tennessee, which means the weather there had gotten much warmer because cassava root is a tropical type of plant. And I thought, well, okay, now I've lost that guy, but then I could sense him also appearing behind me and following me again. So I was a little surprised, but I decided to shift again. This time I went to one of my favorite places, which is one of the big ice rocks that circles Saturn in their rings. And so I popped on top of that, figuring, oh, there's no way he's going to find me here. And then before you knew it, I sensed his presence. He had followed me there. So I was like, wow, okay, now what am I going to do? My next jump was to around the year 2500, where there was that underwater city that I had discovered and described to you in a video. And so, bam! I popped up, and I was underneath the ocean, looking at these underwater installations there, and I thought I was home free, but there was a bit of a delay, and then, bam! I sensed the presence again. Now I was getting a little concerned because this must be a pretty advanced entity if it's been able to follow me like this. So I had one more Hail Mary pass to do. And I've been thinking that all these places are places that I've been before. So let's just go wild. And I just concentrated on ancient Egypt. And I'd never been there before, and I didn't even have a year. I just thought ancient Egypt, and bam, I blacked out. And when I came to, I was hovering over the Nile and looking about to see what was going on. Now, before I really started spending time doing some sightseeing, I hovered for a while, waiting to see if I got that company again, if I was followed once more. But after a good amount of time had passed, I realized, okay, I guess I lost him. And it may be because, I didn't have a fixed target. And I'd never been there before. So maybe he just couldn't find me. Because heck, I didn't even know where I was going exactly. So maybe that was the key. At any rate, I decided, well, I'm in the past now. I know I don't have that much time to spend. Because typically, the further you go back in the past, the less time you have to spend there. Like for instance, maybe you can spend 5 minutes in the past, but when you get back to the present, about 20 minutes has gone by. And of course, the reverse is true in future trips, and we've talked about that. I looked down and I saw the Nile, and it looked a lot closer to the pyramids than I really expected. There was these beautiful sailboats that were pulling up to this little harbor where there was these steps that led up to this temple complex, and goods were being unloaded. I saw a wide variety of goods being unloaded. I saw what looked like wine jars, various food, like fruit, for instance. I saw some stone, or it wasn't being unloaded, but there was a kind of a boat in line that had large pieces of stone as well. And then I kind of pulled back, taking everything in, and I saw this temple complex that was right next to the Nile, and it was leading right back to the actual Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. But they look very different than what we see today, which really surprised the heck out of me. First of all, this temple, this reception temple, I don't know what you want to call it, was very colorful. Everything was painted in blues and golds and reds, very ornate. I guess I just have this idea in my mind of what we see today in Egypt, and it's all pretty much barren stone. So I guess that's how I imagined it. But no, it was beautiful, very very colorful, and very ornate. It was quite lovely. There was also what I would consider rectangular kind of subtombs that were in front of the Great Pyramid that I don't think they're there today. Perhaps they've been covered by the sands, and I imagined that they were probably lesser individuals that were associated with the pharaoh. But what really surprised the heck out of me is when I started flying towards the infamous Sphinx, the Great Sphinx. Today, we still think it's pretty darn cool, and it is. However, this Sphinx was awesome looking. The body was painted reddish brown, the whole body, reddish brown. The head was painted like a pharaoh's head. The headdress was painted in like a lapis lazuli blue and gold. And then the face was painted like a pharaoh's face. Like what the pharaoh would look like. And it was a remarkable artistic achievement, looking much different than what we see today. It also seemed to have a nose, unlike the one that exists today with the broken off nose. So that was something that I guess I didn't expect, but I guess it makes sense. In its heyday, certainly the ancient peoples, they were like we are. We enjoy color. Why wouldn't they enjoy color too? Now, the real awesome sight, though, was the Great Pyramid. Today, the Great Pyramid is the last existing of the ancient world's seven wonders of the world. And it's, even as it exists today, it's a remarkable sight. This enormous structure of stone. But it looked much different from the one that I'm used to looking at in pictures. It shone white. It had white stone on the surface of it, all the way up to the top until you got to this beautiful golden capstone. And it seemed to me like it was in the morning because the sun was kind of rising and it was up, and there was just this powerful reflection that was coming off this lovely, beautiful pyramid. And the whole site just completely impressed me. Now, I know there are people who believe that the aliens built the Great Pyramid, or the aliens built Stonehenge, or the aliens built Pumapunku, or whatever it's called. Uh, I personally think that we give mankind a little bit too little credit. I'm not saying that perhaps aliens didn't have something to do with our genetic code somewhere along the way. And I'm not saying that they didn't perhaps, like the legends say, share with us mathematics and geometry, and maybe some things like that, some basic civilization knowledge. However, I personally believe that many of these wonders were built by humans, and many of our scientists have discovered the techniques that they use to build these things. And I think we give ourselves far too little credit. Remember, the humans of the ancient world were no different than we are. They had the same mental capacity that we do. What they didn't have is computers. And what they didn't have is the technology that we have. But they still had these same brains, this ability to solve problems that we humans have used so successfully in our history, because we weren't blessed with huge strength, or the ability to run fast, or fangs or claws. All we had was these brains, which we were able to use to outsurvive a lot of competitors. The more science goes by, the more we hear about other types of Homo beings that failed somewhere along the way, and we were the final, inheritors of this planet. So all I'm saying is I think we give ourselves a little bit too little credit when we say every cool thing on this planet was built by some alien or other. I think we're giving ourselves too little credit. At any rate, I started flying closer to the pyramid, and I was surprised once again because I felt this powerful attractiveness to it. I just felt this energy that was radiating off of the pyramid, and it was pulling me in, and I wasn't afraid. It was so beautiful that I was just being pulled closer and closer. And I'm not sure what force it was that was pulling me closer and closer. But as I got closer, almost touching the pyramid, I was filled with this energy that I'd never quite felt before. And right before I got to touch the Great Pyramid, I got pulled back to my physical body. Time was up. So I returned to my body, and I'd accomplished a number of things. I'd accomplished this particular mission that I had been sent on, and I got a chance finally to see ancient Egypt. Now, I know I didn't get a chance to see the pyramid being built, but I mean, listen, it was a crapshoot. I had to get away, and I'm pretty happy with what I saw. It was very beautiful. Not the barren stone that we see today, which is still pretty darn impressive when you see the temples that are left, and you see the Great Pyramid, and you see the Sphinx. It's still pretty darn impressive. But when I saw it, I think I saw these things in their prime, and they were really quite lovely. And that attraction that I felt pulling me into that pyramid was very unexpected and quite amazing. My body was humming with energy for quite a while after I returned. Well, there you go. That was my kind of unintentional trip to the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. If you liked that experience, why don't you hit that like button, share it with those of like minds, subscribe if you haven't already, my goodness. And please, I'd be very interested in your questions and comments. And once again, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.